I'm Becky King. I'm in the English department, and I also teach women and gender studies. So what you're going to hear today is based on my experience in those classes. And what I would like to do is find out which department or which department you all teach in, so I can kind of get a sense of what your particular focus would be.
Hi, Lauren Rudd. I'm in Human Sciences with Textiles, Merchandising, and Design.
Great.
Josh Jeffers, History Department, CS Survey.
Super.
Becky Cycle-Human, I'm in biology.
Good.
Library science and ed leadership.
Great.
Frank Lambert, library science and ed leadership.
Good.
Vanessa Leffler, political science.
Shirley Whiteside, University.
Great.
Lane Bryant, University Studies. Cindy Adams, Business Education. Lucy Matthews, Marketing Department, primarily focused on sales.
Good.
Campbell McClary, University Studies.
Jesse Williams, English.
Thank you. Oh, good. We've got a nice broad array here. I am going to just do a demonstration on how to set up rubrics, and I'll just get started. The ideal thing to do is, I think, to go ahead and put your rubric icon up on your navigation bar, because once you start using rubrics, then that's just an easy way. If you don't do that, then, of course, in your course administration, under assessments, you've got a rubric link, and you can do it that way. But I generally set it up here, and to do that, of course, you can go into Edit Course, Navigation, and Themes, and then select the bar, the nav bar that you've got active, and click on that, and then you can add links to any position on the navigation bar. Now, I know the standard now is not to use this. I've been looking at courses as an online reviewer, and a lot of new developers are going with the standard that have the little categories across down there and don't really have the links up here. I like links up there. Maybe it's because I just don't like to change. I'm not sure. I'm not going to psychoanalyze myself, but I think it's easier for students particularly new students, to see what they're working with right there and not have to go through to see if something's under assessment or under communication or whatever. So I'd just like to do that. So anyway, once you click on that, you're going to get a chance to add a new rubric. Now, before you do that, let me show you what this looks like, so you'll have a chance to, you'll set it up. You have to give it a name, and of course, use an informative name. Right now, we're going to keep it in draft status. You will later change it to published. Excuse me. Once you change it to published or archived, you can't do as much with it. So you want to keep it in draft status till you get it the way you want to. And then this is for your description. I actually don't even put anything in there. There are types of analytical. I use types of rubric. I use the analytical, and I'm not even sure what the holistic does. But anyway, this gives you, it's sort of like setting up a table. If you've seen a rubric, let's see. I don't have one set up. That's what a rubric looks like when you get it finished. You've got criteria and levels. And there, you can add as many criteria as you want and as many levels as you want. And that's what it's prompting you for when you, where am I? Okay, so under new rubric, when it's prompting you for levels and criteria, that's what it's asking you for. And so that tells you it's a good idea to plan your rubrics ahead. And so I'm going to back up at some point. Let's look at this rubric. That's where we are. And start with your course objectives. I generally use rubrics for classes that ask students to engage in texts, but obviously you can use them for other things too, depending on what your assignments are. In my classes, both in my literature classes and my women's studies classes, particularly women's studies classes, that's very text-based. And so their assignments really ask them to read and engage in the text and then to post. And I have some sort of guidelines for their posting, and then they typically respond to people. So my course objectives drive my rubric. Obviously, the discussion is not going to assess all the course objectives. It's going to be focused towards certain ones of the course objectives. So, actually, this is a course I'm in right now. This is 2030, The Experience of Literature. It's a sophomore gen ed course. And so my course objectives then include learning and applying basic skills, including close reading, analysis, critical thinking, research, and writing skills. We're also going to be employing close reading and analytical techniques to generate written evaluations, and these sorts of other things. Reflect on, communicate insights into connections among material learned in this course and that of other courses and disciplines, among individual cultural and historic context. You may see MT Engage language in here now because this is my first MT Engage course. And so let's look at what the rubric that arose from that then. That's not what I want. This is the rubric, and I put 4 criteria over here and then 5 levels. And each level you will be able to assign points to. And the trick is to assign points that distinguish the way you want to discriminate between excellent posts and non-posts and all those other degrees in between. If you get too steep a point decline, then you can wind up failing half your class if they don't make a perfect score. So you want to give it, in this one I've just gotten 1 point distinctions between each one. So with 5 levels, 4 criteria and 5 levels, that's a 20-point assignment. And so what this does then is set up the situation where when I go into my discussion assignment, I can go to assess topic, and there are all my students, and y'all are not looking at any names right now. And I can click on harmony. I'm giving you a really good student here so you can see how well we do. And it gives you the rubric right there, and there's a place where you can both assign the number that you want on this one and also provide feedback. That just goes to her, so it's a private comment. I rarely have to give the student feedback because she's fabulous and I would love to clone her. So here is the assignment itself. Let's see. Content. They're to read the short story, notice the details, perform a literary analysis, and summarize the different things. I ask them to educate themselves on get online and look it up, because they don't always get it the first time. Particularly this story, it's written in that style called dirty realism, where it's very minimalist, and young students just really don't generally get this stuff. So I sent them to SparkNotes. And so then once you have done this, address one of the following prompts in the 3 to 4 well-developed paragraphs. Introduce your ideas. In other words, I'm setting up what I want them to do in the assignment. And then each of them will take a prompt. And then this is just more post your discussion, etc. And then avoid simply, this is based on my particular class's behavior so far. I'm just trying to keep them from doing things they've been doing and prompting them to do other things that I hope will advance their writing. So that's the assignment. And then we look at, here is this particular student's response. She's done the 4 paragraphs rather than the 3, which is typical of this student, and it's already suggests that she's a mature student and able to define her goals and to really structure her writing according to the assignment. So I won't read this to you, but if you're reading through, you'll notice that she sets up the context very well. She cites details from the text. She also makes connections where she's talking about use of marijuana and how it functions in the text. It acts as a conduit to the mental stillness of a meditative state. She's looked this up and provided context. That's a connection, going outside the text into something else that. And so then she narrows it down to its relevance to the story. So obviously this student has done a really nice job. So I come back up here, and she's done close reading. I can tell that because she has given me the important details in the story. So if she had, this is adequate reading. That would give you a B overall. And then some attention, little or no post. You should always have something for no post. So you click on that. She gets a 5. And I'm not going to give her any feedback because I'm in a hurry and I've got a gazillion things to do. And she's doing such a good job. And so, and the other thing, at this point in the semester, I've given them all feedback. You don't have to do it every time for every thing. But starting out, it's a good idea. Say, I notice you're having problems with commas, places. Please work with the Writing Center or you'll fail the course. I don't really say things like that, but you get it. And then connections. That has to do with just what I talked about, going out of the text and connecting it to something culturally or historically or otherwise. And so she did that very well. Notice this says some relevant context, limited, few or no, and then no post. And then standard writing conventions, I'm happy to give her a 5 on that. I give 2s in some of these classes, which is really shocking to me. I forgot one. Attention to reader needs for information. And this has to do with audience concerns. That's one of the things that writing classes teach. And so how do I assess that? If I have questions, why did you put this here? What information are you talking about? That's where I need more information, and that's where I can probably do the best with feedback. I need to hear more about what you mean by this or that sort of thing. And so I'm going to give her a 5 on that too. And so this allows me then to see the overall score. Now, for some reason, used to, at the beginning of the semester, this would automatically give me a 20 right there. It's not doing that right now, so I have to go down here and put a 20 in there, and I save and close, and I've published score on save, so that gives me a saved score, and then that goes straight into the grade book because that's the way I've saved it, I've set it up, and that's lovely. That's so easy, and so I can generally get through a class full of substantive posts in maybe an hour. It depends on how much feedback I have to give them and that sort of thing. So then I go to the grades, and I have already set those up to reflect Cathedral, and so it didn't do that.
I think you have a num lock.
Thank you. That'll do it every time. But you can, that will still work. You can, if you mess up sometimes, and I do. Sometimes I forget to click post to grades. So there it is. So that gives you an overview of how those kind of things can work. Let me show you one more type of rubric that I've done. Let's see, Intro to Women's Studies. This rubric is a little bit different because it's a different class. And so, but it's set up the same way. I've got 5 levels and 5 criteria. And because they're doing responses in this one, I've added a response criteria. And they're relevant, address main points of the chapter. And this is, again, based on reading assignments. And so reflect close reading analysis of main points. Obviously, I'm going to see that in the post then by reference to 3 or 4 important points, or adequate reading, which would generally be a B level, and so forth. And then posting meets all requirements. This is a sophomore level gen ed course also. And I found myself dealing with students who didn't attend to all the instructions. And so that's another skill that we're trying to do, the ability to follow written instructions. So that's aimed at that. Writing conventions, of course, connections to personal and cultural, and then responses. And so these actually reflect my experience in grading. The way I word these is based on what I have been seeing over time. And so it gives me ideas. For example, under the writing conventions, plagiarism errors. They're so used to cutting and pasting from the internet. And a lot of times they cite it, but it's still plagiarism, and they need to learn the convention. So all mine have a plagiarism element on there. And if they get marked off, then I give them feedback. Please look at this, and I have links to everything that they want to review. So those sorts of things keep in mind when you're building your rubrics. So let's see. Let's go back then to how you build your rubric. Here is the new one, and you put your title in there. Started as a draft, analytical, and so this is where you put your numbers of levels. And if I don't put a name on there, it won't let me. I have to save it as something. I can go back and change that name if I want to. And these are, I don't want to hide the scores from that. Here's your scoring points or text, or you can do custom points. I just do points. And then these are, this gives you the ability to associate with an Eportfolio item, or if you do competencies. I don't, but perhaps in nursing that might be, or a lab sort of situation. And you could do it I could do it with competencies. I just haven't had time to get that involved in my documentation. So, but that allows you to do that. And I just go ahead and click them anyway, so that if I do go back, I can associate them rather. So then you save. And then the levels and criteria are available on this second tab. And it gives you just a blank slate with a pattern in place then for you to revise. So where it says criterion 1, you can add criteria, you can add levels. I don't know about groups because I don't get that involved in mine. This allows you, if you decide to move them up and down, you can. And if you want to reverse the level, I always put my highest level next to the criteria because I hope I'm going to be grading in this range, and that keeps me from having to, and it's not always the case, but anyway, you can do that how you want. Yes?
If you want, you have to add a new criteria group if you want a different group to have a different amount of points. See, if the levels are the same, but the point values are different, like say one set of things are worth 4.2 and some are worth 3.2, so I think then you have, that's when you need that
Oh, okay.
criteria group.
I've just never done that. Thank you.
You actually, if you're going to do points that are different, you have to choose the custom points on the very first page, or it won't let you assign different points.
It will, you need a different group.
Oh, I didn't know if we could do that.
Oh, well.
Now, there's another way to do it. Oh.
So now, on yours, for level 1, you had 0 points assigned. So how
Yes.
how would you change, like right here?
Okay, well, let's do that. You want to edit this, and that's where I do that. And it allows me to write in my description right there, and if I want to change that name, I can, but I never do. And you can also give, it allows you to give canned feedback. This can send them to a chapter or review this or, some sort of thing that would always be the case. It's not the personal feedback, but it gives them a reference to something they can look at and to study and get better on whatever it is they did not do well on. So this is where you, you can go ahead and put all of your criteria in place for that level. And you save that, and then when you come back to it, you've got there. Same thing here. You can edit criteria, and this is where you, let's see, I should be able to post right here. And again, I can give it some feedback there. So this is my, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted it in my criteria. Edit criteria. I should say you can preview all of these too as you're going, and that lets you see what your students will see. So you would put your criteria name here. And below. And as you do these, it will give you this automatically. It will add up your points and give you the totals that you want to do. And what I've actually done, I learned all this kind of the hard way, particularly in assigning points. If you give too many, if you have if you go from 4 to 2 to 1 to 0, then you wind up, to get a B, you can't get a B. You'd either get an A or a C. So you want to make sure you are setting it up so that you're able to record different levels and not fail your students unless they do perfect. That's not a very nice thing to do. So you want it to be discriminating to an extent. So that's really what you do with that, and then you save it. This allows you to preview it, and it'll show you what we've done, which isn't very much on this one. And where do I save this? I close it. So now I've got a test. I can edit from there, and I can preview. It's still in draft mode. So what I want to do, after I get it the way I want it, then I go into the edit, and then I can change the status there to published. And I'm not going to do that because I don't want it hanging around in my rubrics list. And at that point, you are ready then to go back. And I don't know how y'all set up your courses, but I generally add my discussions in from the discussion list. And so if I want to do a new forum, and create a topic from that. And then here are some other things that you want to look at. You probably, if you're using discussions, you already know about that. I don't allow anonymous posts. I don't worry with moderating approval. I just don't have time. Users must start a thread before they can read and reply to other threads. So let me just share my experience with this. This new MTA Engage course that I'm teaching, sophomore level Gen Ed, I did not click that. So the idea was they can kind of learn from each other and share, see how people did this. I got 2 students who copied and changed like 3 words. Well, that just made me so mad. I didn't know what to do. So then I clicked on that. Well, then they work together with their laptops sitting next to it. So one of them will post a little something, and then the other one can look at it and copy that one and modify it. Yeah, those are cheaters. So I just send them straight to academic affairs. I work with students who make mistakes or who get crazy and think, I'll just copy these 3 words from the internet, and I'll work with people. But I'm not working with people who copy and paste. That's middle school, maybe, and they just need to go grow up somewhere. So.
I do that moderator if I don't want them to see the post, and then I don't.
Right.
I don't release them until the day I'm grading.
Well, that's.
I tell them you're not going to see your post.
Yeah, you can do that.
They can't copy. They can't. And after you, I want my discussion group actually says in open discussion you have to add at least one new idea.
Right. Exactly.
I'll be the moderator. And
Yeah.
They can't see it, and that's gotten rid of all of that.
Well, it does, but then they can't read each other's
Well, they can read
stuff.
it after the.
Well, afterwards they can, yes.
Afterwards they read.
But I was
it,
thinking,
they have
here's little silly, naive me. I was thinking they can read Harmony's post, the one we just looked at, and see what a good post looks like. Good students can do that, but weak students are, going to fall into every trap there is available to them. So I think you're exactly right. It's probably better
Well,
just
when
to.
I have a response, they have usually 5 days and
Mhm.
then post a response. So
That's
they
a good
have to
point,
see-
right.
well, so there's a
Yeah.
difference.
You've got 2 due dates, your original post and then your response date. Yes. Wow, yeah. So anyway, there is, and if you want to put up your dates and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not going to do that right now. So I've got my test, and where are you? Way down here. And I'm still going to edit this. I'm going to go to my assistant. I'm going to associate it with a grade item. I'm not going to do this just because I'm in a real course, where you put the name in and give it the points and all that. That will give you a grade on your grade book, and then you put the score in there, and then that's where you go to add rubric. I don't have test in there because it's still in draft mode. So you just put your rubric there and add selected, and then when you get ready to evaluate, you go to assess topic, and we've done this before, and you can look at the you can leave messages like personal feedback. Here is, I'm glad I clicked on a good one. Thanks for your eloquent post. Your perspective is a valuable one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and then this has got a couple of I think just one run response. But the nice thing is it puts all of Hannah's posts right there in one place. So I don't have to look for Hannah's post to look at her original post and her response. And that's very nice. That's a fairly new feature, because before you couldn't assess either. So they've really upgraded their discussion function. So then I can go back up here and click on all these things, get the scores, and publish it on Save.
Let me ask you,
Yes.
Can you click, like, on that very first one?
Uh-huh.
Can you just click where it shows the 4 points instead of 6 points and it automatically changes? No,
Like
not in
that?
there. Like, if I don't want to score it that way, can I just click on where the point, like, it'll do that?
Like this?
No, down below, in the bottom, that's correct.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, good point. So that really gives you a fair amount of flexibility and the ability to really tailor your feedback to specific students. Like I say in the beginning of a class, I will give them specific feedback. Notice that was an attaboy. I get to the point in the semester where I'm so busy, I don't give them positive feedback. I get really bad about it. So I have to apologize every once in a while. Say, you're really doing well, but I just get so busy. I'm just pointing out the things you need to work on. But you can really, be flexible throughout the semester depending on what, as you get to know your students, what works for them, what motivates them best, what helps them move to the next level and that sort of thing. So that's pretty much what I was going to go over today. Unless you have questions, or I would also love for you to share your own experiences.
For an online course, how many discussions do you generally end up having?
That's a good question, and it depends on the course. My professional writing course, I have one, because everything else is Dropbox sort of thing or quizzes. My women's studies, I have one for each chapter, 13 chapters. So and then I always do an introduction one. That's particularly online. I do that even in face-to-face because you don't really have a chance to, unless you take some class time, you can do that. But it stays there if you do it online. And then in our class, we do audience issues, so they can go back and look at who their audience is and be real about who they're talking to. So I look at other courses, and I see as many as, more than one a week. I think it really depends on what else you're doing, how you're assessing your students for the particular levels, activities that they're doing. But let me show you my syllabus. I think the one I use that has the most in it is my women's studies. And so when you get to the board there, they're going to see, chapter 1, and then I give them a class social where they can talk about anything they want to. I also always do a reference librarian for an online course. And then this is where I get my assessment back. And this is anonymous. I have this set up as anonymous. Notice I didn't get any in this class. And whatever else I want to do. I also post extra credit things where I have them do things. And I also have things that they can post. If they find, we do like go out and search for this, that, and the other, and if you want to post for this, that, and the other. So anyway, so there's no right answer to that. It's just how you are getting your assessments done for different assignments and course objectives.
We use it also for collaborative papers a lot.
Yeah.
Private tools and collaborative papers, so they're set up in groups, and they have a problem. So they'll write one paper together and then submit that in Dropbox, and everybody's definition of what collaboration and cooperative is. So it's pretty useful. I think.
Yeah.
So then you don't have as many reviews. You don't have to agree with
That's a good point, doing group projects like that help you manage they do. And to tell you the truth, I don't use much in the way you're doing graduate students. Undergraduate students, the attrition rate is such that you have to reformulate your groups so often that just got me right out of the group work early on. Yeah.
And we have a rubric, a service that they can assess the group members.
Yes, right.
You don't just want every group member, someone has to that.
Interesting.
What could be done that we didn't do?
Yeah.
And then what did we do? Maybe we did
Mm-hmm.
to get things like standards and all, open discussion boards and all.
Oh, not really.
Not really technical about that stuff, but they get the point after the first one, and they get participation in the first time.
Yeah.
They get the point when we just let them know. It is useful.
Mhm.
Cut down here, we classes.
Oh, now see, I would never even think about it. I don't know what I would do.
Groups should only be 4 to 6 people.
Yeah, that's a good point. So,
Becky, do you give them, in your online sections, do you give them any guidelines about timeliness of posts? Because what I run into, if I don't give them that, is everyone wants to do it on the very last day.
right.
How do you encourage
Yes.
them to be participating all throughout the week? Or do you care?
I do, but there's a couple of ways to handle it. I tend to, with the one that requires a response, my women's studies, I just give them one deadline, and I'll tell them you've got to post, and if you're the first one to post, you'll have to come back in and look. But a better way to do that, I just have never done it, is to give them a deadline for the initial post, and then give them a deadline 2 or 3 days later for their responses. And
They don't like that. They complain.
right, and I don't either, because I had to go in twice for the same assignment. So that's why I haven't done it. But I don't know what students. My good students always manage to do it just great, and others get on board, and some of them just never quite catch up. And I don't know, what you can do about that. Anybody got any good?
Just have to get the dates.
Yeah.
And then give them 3 days, maybe to read the post.
Yep.
Not missing 3 days separation. That's a rule of thumb. It works. They always want,
If you don't, it ends up with a discussion between 10 p.m. and midnight on the last day.
and it might be.
Right.
Which is not much of a discussion.
Well, and everybody comments on one person posts early, so all of the responses are on that one. You just late, I mean, I don't know how to do the next one, you know, you just want to make a question about how to an error in your assignment, but it's a discussion of it. That's what I think about all week long. They're all different.
Okay, so this is another online literature course where I've got it set up again with introductions, and then it's organized around a textbook. And so this one, I gave different topics for each forum. And so as you can see, different students could respond to the topic that they want to. And I think that's a nice arrangement too. And then you can see this is Victorian literature, so these are overarching themes where they have to discuss primary text, but then also commentary and weave a discussion into those. And actually, I did this before I ever started doing rubrics, so you can see they're fairly lengthy posts, and then there would be a response to that, a nice response to that. And then what I would do there, since I didn't have the assessment rubric to communicate, then I would just respond to the post. I'm teaching this summer. Next semester. So I'll have the benefit now of having a rubric available. So this is quite a bit of if you look at my grades, excuse me, sorry, the perspectives are a good bit of the overall assessment activities. I do a couple of quizzes and then midterm and a essay and a midterm and final exam. So again, I think discussions are a really wonderful way to get to know your students and for them to really practice writing skills and audience skills and those sorts of things. And the rubric just makes it a lot easier to use. Any other questions or observations or sharing? Mm-hmm. I have never tried to do that, and I don't know, but I would probably not. Okay. Oh, you can? Okay. A little more discriminating. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Right. That's exactly right. Exactly. Yes.
Like this isn't a grading rubric, it's just for and we could give partial scores.
Sure.
But nobody bothers about that.
Ah. Yeah, partial scores, like I say, I'm glad to know you can do that. I just set mine up so I don't have to deal with all that stuff. Right. Yeah. Well, and then you would really want to do that because then you'd have A's and C's and F's. I mean, that's not really fabulous. Yeah. And so finally, I will show you the, let me go back here. The MT Engage rubric, which is a holistic rubric and doesn't have numbers assigned to it. And it's a really nice rubric. I don't know if y'all have gotten involved in it. I'm very enthusiastic about MT Engage because I think it, you know, when I look at my old course objectives, very few of them really explicitly say, I want you to make these connections to your world and to what you're going to be when you grow up and your other courses. I want you to identify the learning that you've taken place. I want you to reflect on what we've done this semester. I just never did think to ask them to do that. And now that I am, I'm getting some really nice results from that. And the kids are getting these little light bulb moments where they're able to see what they've done and then maybe think, you know, I didn't really get this, and so maybe I should. So let's look at that rubric. There are two. One is for the Eportfolio. And these are available anytime you set up an MT Engage course. They'll send you the rubrics for them. Notice that that instead of numbers up here, we developed a developing, a benchmark, a milestone, advancing, and capstone. And so on my assignment for my MT Engage, I told them they should all be aiming for a benchmark level. Their assignment includes either an essay or a PowerPoint or blog posts. We set up a classroom blog. And so this asks them to make connections, relevant experience and academic knowledge. So this says reflects connections between general academic courses and relevant experience. And that's what I was trying to get at in my own rubric, not to wait till the end of the course to get them to do this, but to be doing this all through the course. Connections to the disciplines, and I tell them they're not really perhaps into their discipline-specific courses yet as a sophomore, so but they should at some point have some awareness. Like I've got 3 pre-nursing students. They certainly know what they're going to be doing. I've got a couple of PT folks, business people. They have an idea to know what kind of skills they're going to be using or what kind of knowledge base they're going to need. So we've worked on that all semester. One of the things that we're talking about is assessment. Well, you do that in everything. Business has got a business plan where you assess, plan, evaluate, control, and so forth. Nursing has an assessment process. So that's going to be, you can find one element that you can help them connect across disciplines. This one is adapt and apply skills, abilities, theories, methodologies gained in one situation to new situations. And the benchmark here is assignment reflects the skill to adapt and apply some skills, understanding theories, methodologies gained in one situation to new situations in order to solve problems or explore issues. We focus on the methodologies at this point. Close reading is good when you're reading a piece of literature. It's good when you're reading a textbook in your chemistry class. It's good for whatever you're doing. So those kind of things that, again, you can find one way to connect that thing. And then integrated communication. Make strategic, meaningful communication choices across multiple contexts and purposes, professional, academic, and civic. And so benchmark here, this is actually, they're going to be presenting their final projects in classes. Their assignment demonstrates awareness of and attention to audience, purpose, subject, and format. That's really basic. They should have gotten that as freshmen, so certainly. But that gives us a structure on which we can talk about how you do that, what that looks like when you're making your presentation. What does it mean to assess your audience needs? Those sorts of things. And then finally, reflection and self-assessment demonstrates a developing sense of self as a learner, building on prior experiences to respond to new and challenging contexts, may be evident in self-assessment, reflective, or creative work. So here's the benchmark. Assignment indicates beginning skill to engage in some of the following: analyze, reflect, judge, and evaluate ideas, envision a future self, for example, make plans that build on past experiences, work with ambiguity and risk, deal with frustration, consider ethical frameworks in varied context. And I actually just did a reflection essay, and we worked together. We generated an outline. What is this? Because they were terrified. They were going, I've never written anything like that, and I've just seen these deer in the headlight, eyes. And so I said, this is, remember our work on empathy? I'm feeling your anxiety right now. And so what we're going to do is, and I tell them, this is new for me too. It's it's one of those messy things. We're all taking risks here but I tell them, you're not going to be at risk because you're doing something new. That's not going to impact your grade. Your grade is going to reflect your getting involved and demonstrating what you do. And so anyway, we just have worked through it together. But the reflection paper, we decided what we were going to write about. And we wrote an outline. Let's do this first. And it had to do with identifying who you are, how you got to be that way. And then we talked about, what do I want to be when I grow up? What kind of qualities do I have that I think would be useful? What are the things am I learning this semester that will help me do this? And I think I started out with my home page. Oh, shoot. For this class, we're reading a book that, and an article that set up these particular skills. The first 4 are involved in just about anything. I got those from the GMAT prep class that I taught. In their workbook, they says everybody needs these things for whatever thing you get into. And they fit in with everything else we're doing, too. And so that has also structured what we've done. This was from an article that I assigned for reading. The course is the experience of literature. But the first thing we did was define what we mean by literature. And we decided it was everything, all reading. Not just fiction, not just poetry, not just creative literature, but practical literature. So they read a practical article. And it has to do with empathy, positive thinking, reflection, and self-assessment. So everything we've done is looking at the characters in our stories. Are they demonstrating this? What happens when they don't have this? And then also looking at our own abilities to demonstrate those things. So it's been a fun way of kind of working with the MT Engage rubric and then coming up with my own assignment rubric. And that's been, for this particular course, the primary writing that they've done for demonstrating their learning objectives and my assessment for them. They've written a couple of other papers, and then their final project and presentation will be the rest of it. And they're going to upload their final project to the Eportfolio. I have to learn how to do that first. I mean, it's just like,
It's not easy for me.
well, and there's a lot of stuff there, and I just haven't I've done what I could do by myself, and now I have to go sit down with Jimmy Thursday and stay 2 steps ahead of my students.
Well, we
So.
really need them to come to our class and tell us how to use it, because
Yeah.
it is not easy for me.
Before you even that, we don't have a contact with that's what we can do here in the program.
Yeah.
And it's much better when they can do another in there.
Huh.
You have to load everything one.
Right, and then put it, yes, exactly.
And the terminology is awful.
Yeah. One of the things I did, though, that helped, I think, a lot was I went online and Googled. Auburn has got a lovely list of actual portfolios that students have created that you can look at.
Work with you too.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Excellent.
University of Wisconsin school, they start. In Colorado.
Okay, that's not working.
So what are you having trouble teaching students how to make their presentation, or just how to upload something?
Just how to make the whole thing.
Just how to get started.
They're just like totally mystified. You know, I have an example and I told them what I've done. And they have that. And I told them to just look web.
Better than I am.
But they don't, and then,
It's actually, once things are in there, it's easier to do it, but the shell seems so blank that nobody knows where to go for what. What is the presentation versus the other thing, and what are they for, and the terminology it's not intuitive.
and here's I'm gonna tell you this, really, I went over this week. Couldn't get it to link phrase to the assignment. I said, what the heck is that? It's like over there. And he watches me do it, and it won't link, and then he links it. I was like, well, what do you do different? And what I realized is I like to hold the mouse down and drag it to highlight something, or no, double click on it, to highlight something, and he held it down and drags it, and it won't accept it if you double click. It's like something like that I probably spent 20 minutes on, and then I'm over there, and I'm like, this is just junk there. And I still gotta use it, so there's that.
You know, probably what would be fantastic is that if there was like a series of videos, for example, that we could embed right into our courses in D2L, that how to create.
They're on the
website. Say what again? They're on the website. They're pretty rudimentary.
They're on the D2L website.
Well, sure, but that's D2L. I'm thinking about specific institutions.
Yeah.
If we have some, like, you know, for example, you have thematic, when you're creating an Eportfolio, you save it, and then instructors can embed that video in the courses. And then you have the library of different videos, and like potentially be beneficial not only to instructors but also to the students. And then that would save folks from having to make all these classroom presentations individually, whereas you have.
Yeah, we won't.
Well, no, but again, if that, you say that now, but from on high, if they say you will now start making these presentations in the classroom, we can say, well, we do have these library videos, or these library videos that instructors.
And there are places where students can go.
Yeah, technology on the first floor, we can engage that content. That's perfect. But for
Where?
students that are completely online and are not on campus, that absolutely can't help them at all.
They've changed their link.
And our program's not unique. And it's
Some of the links on the website don't work.
Okay, well, the Auburn folks have taken theirs. Well, it's not down, it's just not Lincoln. See, I just get a circular link there, because I had put a Eportfolio resources link up for my students, and there's a good, nice overview, and then that's exactly right. And those examples really help. Here's another one, let's see.
Are the examples that the NCAA students did last year on the NCAA website?
No, I've given them one of those, Lynn, but for some reason it's not exactly what I asked them to do. They want to see.
Well, next semester you will have.
I'll have to give them. They really want to see. I've given them table of contents. I got to pull it up. This is the table of contents. It's not what a portfolio is supposed to be. It's supposed to be small, but there's
Oh, well.
librarian.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. And appreciate you coming.